What's up, everybody? It's your boy Joey Work, Run Pure Bets. I'm back. Countdown begins for MLB season. 1 full week. Yep, that's right. 7 days, baby. Next Thursday. So I already started looking up matchups for opening day. I'm so excited. But on to the division previews. This is 4 of 6. I got another guest, the notorious Nolly Knows. Huge baseball guy. Definitely knows his shit. What's up, Nolly? How you been, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing real good. You said it today, man. I was counting down. I mean, 10:05 exactly. I tweeted it out. 7 days exactly. 7 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. I was down to the last second. That's how excited I am. Baseball is back, and hopefully we get a full 162 so I can really hit the books, man.
Hell yeah. I feel you, man. I definitely had a successful baseball season last year. I know you did too, but with we're a little limited with the 60 games. So with the 162, definitely pumped up, ready to go.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because there's a lot of ups and downs. Some of those guys that were riding the highs, they didn't get a chance to go down, and some of those
Yep,
guys that were down didn't get a chance to go up. So it's a whole different ball game when you talk about a full season. But thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure being here. It's an honor, and I'm ready to break this stuff down, man.
let's get it. All right, so let's start this off. We're doing NL West today. So first in the NL West, I got the Dodgers. I mean, it should be more of a battle with 162 games in the Padres, but they obviously finally got off that hump, 32 years and won a championship. They're still projected to win over 100 games. They did lose Jock Peterson, Kiki Hernandez, and a couple bullpen arms, but in Pedro Baez and Alex Wood. But, the core is still intact and young. 10 of the Dodgers World Series roster 10 of the players were under 26 years old. Obviously, they brought back Justin Turner. They still have Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger. They speak for themselves. Plus, A.J. Pollock, this is his second year on the Dodgers, and it looks like he's going to start in the outfield, the last outfield position. Corey Seager back to full strength last year after Tommy John, and he is a free agent next year, so I do look for him to have extra motivation. Gavin Lux looks like he possibly be the starting second baseman. He's a young prospect who moved up quickly through AA and AAA, and the sky's the limit for him. I know a lot of people are very high on him. I do personally have him as a keeper on my fantasy baseball team, so I'm rooting for him as well. Max Muncy, he struggled a little bit last year, but he still hit 16 home runs, bounced back in the playoffs, and then bench. They still have a decent bench. Chris Taylor, Edwin Rios. The rotation obviously got better with the addition of Trevor Bauer. Kershaw has slowly started to regress, but he's still a solid 2-3 in this league, especially the National League. Then Walker Buehler, he ranks in the top 4 in spin rate on his fastball and curveball. He looks to be the future ace of this team. Uriel's scheduled to be number 4. David Price will be back after opting out last year to round out the rotation. Imagine being David Price. I kind of feel bad for the guy opting out and the team wins the World Series. You think he's still got a ring?
He better not. He better not.
That's what I'm saying. But so there's also, the bullpen. They got 4 rookies pitching important innings out of the bullpen last year during this championship run. Dustin May, obviously, Tony Gonsolin, Gratterall, and Victor Gonzalez. So while they may move May and Gonsolin to the rotation, possibly, the other 2 are key hogs in this bullpen now. Gratterall could be in the wings to take over Kenley Jensen as the closer. They added Tommy Kahnle from the Yankees, but he did just get Tommy John, so he's out for a little bit. They re-signed Blake Triner, 3.86 ERA, 1.2 whip last year. And then they had a pair of guys from the Brewers in Corey Keeble and Jimmy Nelson. All in all, this team's really good. Their bullpen's solid. Rotations only got better. They obviously deservedly the favorite to come out of the NL, and I'm seeing them plus 175 to win the National League, which I'm not going to bet on. But over-under wins 130, 103 and a half. That's a nice, juicy number. My projections have them winning 102 games, so not enough edge there. I'm going to lean off that. And they're minus 300 to win the NL West. Clearly no value there, so I'm off that. But this is your favorite team, so what do you got to say about the Dodgers?
Oh man, I don't even know where to even begin. I mean, we could sit here have a whole show just on the Dodgers, and I'll badmouth them just like I'll pump them up. That's how it is when it's your team. You mentioned though Galvin Lux, and that's a key piece. A lot of Dodger fans are very upset about the trade, or not the trade, but letting go Kike Hernandez, a fan favorite here. But I mean, ultimately, the guy still doesn't produce a high batting average. The guy is a very clutch hitter, and I appreciate everything he did for him. I want him to succeed out in Boston. But the truth is, the Dodgers are so deep that they're not going to miss a beat. Chris Taylor can do everything that Kike did, and Chris Taylor is going to be the main utility guy, whether it be in the infield or the outfield. And you mentioned we go back to Galvin Lux. Galvin Lux has been a has been he tore up the whole minor league baseball system, hit over 305, 383 on base percentage. I mean, the guy, you look at his awards and it's like two sheets because you just keep scrolling. The guy's got awards, player of the month, player of the year, futures games. The guy is very, very touted, and we're expecting big things from him. I think the big reason that he wasn't able to play last year, he came into the offseason a little sluggish. He was showing up late to practice, so they benched his ass. They sent him to the alternate field, and they said we'll do it with Kike and with Kike, Muncy, and Taylor, and we were able to get it done. Gavin Lux came in, mixed it in a little bit, didn't produce like what we thought, but I think this guy's a stud and a lot of good things about him. And then as far as the rotation, David Price. David Price is the one guy that's kind of gets left out on the side. People forgetting that we still have him. What are we expecting out of him? Well, he's a fifth starter, so we don't have to expect too much. Can he crunch down and throw some innings? I think so. And a guy being an older, I think the time off, the layoff might help him. I don't want to see Urias in the bullpen anymore. I think he's more than solidified himself as one of the elite starters in the major leagues. And I think that's where he belongs. You mentioned Dustin May going to the bullpen along with Gonsolin because there's just an abundance of starting pitching. If we're looking at the betting odds, though, and we're trying to find an edge, it's hard to say we have an edge with the Dodgers, just to win the National League at 175. The division, 8 straight times they have won the division, only behind the Braves and the Yankees. The Yankees did it 9 times in a row. Braves did it 14, and I don't think they won a championship in that. But anyways, we'll skip that. But plus 300 to win the World Series, and that's my argument that I've had with some guys, where some guys like there's still value. You're getting any plus money with the Dodgers is value. I mean, if you're gonna ask me, we're gonna win the World Series every year, so I can't give you a true real answer in that sense. But hard to say if there's value at plus 300. A lot of things can happen over the course of a season. And I mean, the Dodgers, though, you look at it, they got 3 pitchers in the top 10 in Cy Young voting. You got Trevor Bauer, Buehler, and Kershaw. But let's be honest, Bauer, as great as he did last year and as great as he did 2 years ago, he's still over a 4 ERA guy. Is he worth $40 million? I'm going to say hell no, because I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about that shit, especially when I see my true ace, Walker Buehler, signed a 2-year, $8 million contract. Baseball is really keeping these lower level guys. If you're still under minor league contracts, they really screw these guys, But to me, Bauer wasn't worth the $40 million. But do I want him on my team? Without a doubt, man. The guy is a good pitcher. Just the one concern, he kind of implodes. You saw it the other day. He was pitching, 1 home run turned into 3 home runs and 5 runs. And I wasn't trying that hard that inning. Cut the crap, man. And the thing is, I've seen him with the Reds. Joey Votto making an error in one of the innings, and he completely implodes. He's yelling at Joey Votto and then ends up giving up 3 runs. That's the problem with his emotion and the high electricity, the way he is. It can be good when it's good, but it could get real bad real fast. That's my one concern with Trevor Bauer, but he's got a lot to prove. He's back here in LA. So there's a lot to like about the Dodgers. Hard for me not to say they're not the best team in the major leagues, but the Padres are on the heels, definitely on the heels.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up with Bauer, and he is definitely a head case. Remember when he took the ball and threw the ball over center field wall?
Exactly, man. He threw it, and then instantly he turns around and he's apologizing. I'm sorry. Like, yeah. Bro, get out of here.
Yeah, and plus, as you mentioned, he is basically a career over 4 ERA guy. He had obviously a good season last year in the shortened 60-game season. So that really, you have to take that definitely with a grain of salt. Year before he pitched good, but he's also been taking these 1-year contracts, knowing that eventually it would lead to this. And now he just got paid. So might be a little regression from him after getting paid.
Yeah, but that's only the one thing that I kind of do like about him. He's willing to take a 1-year contract every year. There's still a lot of options, even in this contract, albeit a 3-year deal. There's still a lot of options for both sides to opt out of there. So that's the one thing that I kind of like kind of respect that he's willing to say, hey, I'm going to give you a 1 year deal because every year I'm going to prove it. That's the one thing, but I'm borderline with him, man. I'm going to tell you the truth, man.
I hear you. All right, so let's get on to the next team. Obviously, the next team is more than likely San Diego Padres. They're making baseball fun again. Personally, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, these two. This team had 22 come from behind wins last year out of 60 games. It's pretty impressive. Obviously, the fun starts with Tatis, 22-year-old, fourth in NL MVP voting. He had 17 homers, 45 RBIs last year in 59 games. Led baseball with an exit velocity of 96 miles an hour. He's also focused on his defense last year. He only had 3 errors, and previously he had 18. So, you can't forget about Manny. He batted .304, 16 home runs, 47 RBIs. Then they got a couple, young guys in the middle. Jake Cronenworth, he blossomed into an intriguing prospect. He tied for second in NL Rookie of the Year voting last year. The outfield looks to be set with Trent Grisham, Will Myers, and Tommy Pham. Myers looked actually really good last year, rejuvenated after batting .288, 15 home runs, and 40 RBIs. He's been on a lot of teams and struggled up and down, but he played pretty well last year. Then, obviously, Tommy Pham, he broke his wrist, was limited to only 30 games. But he's a guy I personally love. I love his approach at the plate. I know he did get stabbed in the offseason, so I'm pretty sure he's good to go opening day, but that should be something to look out for. And then Trent Grisham, he's sidelined with a hamstring injury right now, but he should be ready to go for opening day and should produce. He was rather impressive last year on both offensive and defensive end. And then they still have Eric Hosmer, Jerson Profar, and they did add Hyun-Sung Kim from the KBO. He has struggled so far this in spring training, but he should add a solid bat to their lineup. Then rotation looks much different than it did last year. In a span of 24 hours, they traded for Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, both basically number 1 starters for their teams. They're projected for at least 13 wins apiece and under 3.3 ERA each. They also added Joe Musgrove from the Pirates in an off-season trade. So Chris Paddock, who was the opening day starter last year, is now their quote-unquote number 4. They have young guys in Lamet, Mackenzie Gore, who should make his debut this year, hopefully, and Adrian Morjon to fill out the rotation. So the rotation's much different and I think better, definitely, than it was previous couple of years. Obviously, the bullpen was a strength last year before a bunch of guys got hurt. They lost closer Kirby Yates and setup man Trevor Rosenthal in the offseason. It's looking like they're going to depend on some vets to get to pitch some important innings. They basically, I'm seeing Emilio Pagan or Mark Melanson as their closer. Drew Pomerantz probably will get some opportunities as well. He was good last year, 1.45 ERA, 20 appearances, 29 strikeouts. They did sign Keon Kella, who's probably be a setup man and pitch some innings. But there's a lot of questions here in the pen. I do expect them probably to trade for some guys during the season to shore up the pen. But this team is definitely positioned to rival the Dodgers, plus 200 to win the NL West. Their win total set at 94.5. I'm probably off both. I'm thinking like their line to win the division will only get better as the season goes on, especially if they stutter to start. The sneaky bet would be for them to win the NL, but again, this is, I think, a number we can get better as the season begins. So what do you got about the Padres, Nolly?
Yeah, the damn San Diego Padres, on the heels, that they're trying hard. You talk about in just 48 hours before the trade line, their general manager made 6 deals involving 27 players. He's making moves right now because he knows he has the team, he has a core to really contend with all the major leagues, especially when you're going against the Dodgers. I'm going to be honest with you. They've got 2 of my favorite players over there, Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. Manny Machado, to me, is the best defensive third baseman in the game, and there's no doubt about it. You watch Arenado, he's the one that got the gold glove, but watch him make the plays that Manny makes, and Manny makes it effortless, and it's a line drive right to the chest of the first baseman. There's nobody defensively better than him at third. It's amazing to watch. Fernando Tatis, you mentioned it a little bit. It kind of reminds me of Ken Griffey Jr. a little bit in the sense that he's making baseball cool. That is something that is difficult to do. Baseball is not a cool sport for a lot of people, so to have that swag, to have the way he does it, it's great for the game. I really love what he's doing, and I love what's going on in San Diego. I'm going to tell you right now, I ordered a Tatis jersey. Don't tell my son because he might be hot, but I'm a huge fan. You know, this is a once in a generation talent, just the way he is. I'm still upset even at his father. You know, I was at the game where his father hit 2 grand slams in 1 inning off Chan-Ho Park. I remember that shit like it was yesterday. But but I'm not bitter at all. Not bitter. We're but talking about the San Diego Padres, a big concern still is going to be their starting rotation. They did get a lot deeper when you talk about Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish stepping it back up, had a resurgence, kind of figured out Houston was cheating, and all of a sudden he figured out, hey, I'm still a great pitcher. You know, and I honestly do believe that that's a big deal with him. You know, once he realized that they were cheating, kind of got that monkey off his back, and he's been pitching lights out ever since. Blake Snell, there's the guy's phenomenal. You know, he wants his second chance at the Los Angeles Dodgers. You know, everybody knows he got pulled a little early, which I don't disagree with the coach because if you look at Blake Snell's numbers, that second and third time around the lineup, he got lit up. Not just a little bit. You're talking about 300 batting average. Most of the home runs and doubles came that time. So I don't disagree with what the coach did. That's what got him there. So you don't change that now. You know, so you can go back, hindsight's 2020. But Blake Snell, great acquisition. But the biggest question mark, of course, is Chris Paddock. Chris Paddock is in his own head. You know, every article that I read, all he's talking about is trying to eliminate that noise, trying to eliminate what other people are talking, even what fans are saying. How are you listening to what fans are telling you, bro? Like that's how bad you're in your head. You know, I will say this though, having the break in between the 2020 season and this season, maybe try to normalize life a little bit, seeing your family, seeing your friends, hanging out, and trying to take a step back and trying to adjust and analyze things for yourself. Maybe that would help him because those are things that he's saying. But to me, you know, that guy, he implodes. You know, it's one hit and one hit turns into 3 runs just like that, and it's quick. You know, he goes from dominant to that. So that's my one. That's my concern with them. And the other one is Dinelson Lamet. Is he going to be ready? You know, that's the one thing. Dinelson Lamet, they're thinking he's going to be just as dominant as he was this last year, which was great, right? But he's coming off of Tommy John surgery. He added velocity to his pitches, so it's a lot of new things that people didn't have time to adjust to. Well, over a course of 162 games, it's a lot of tape, and they're going to adjust. And I think that will be the case against Dinelson Lamet, predominantly because he only uses 2 pitches. Don't get me wrong, his breaking ball is filthy. But that is a problem when you're here at the major league level. So there's still a lot of question marks when you look at that, when you look at their starting rotation. And the other one is Joe Musgrove. Joe Musgrove, this is a guy it's very difficult to figure out. I will ride this guy. But once I ride him and I catch that under, I'm gone the next day because he'll implode, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? This guy will shut you down one day and the next day give up 5-6 runs. That's been the big thing. But he does have the stuff to be dominant. The change of scenery might be something good for them. One good key arm for them out of the bullpen has been Drew Pomeranz. Drew Pomeranz has been really good out of the bullpen. He's kind of found himself out there, you know. Another guy, Adrian Morejon. Morejon is probably going to end up using him as a starter if Dinelson Lamet can't go. So they do have some pieces. You talked about them, adding Keela, adding Melankin. Those are key pieces. But one piece that I think goes overlooked a lot is the re-signing of Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar played phenomenal last year. He seemed to find his niche on this team. That's something that he hasn't been able to figure out his entire MLB career. He came up as a highly touted prospect with the Rangers, never seemed to work out. They started moving him around. He's even playing outfield. This is a middle infielder, but he's playing outfield over here for San Diego, moves around a little bit, but he'll probably be playing second base because they're still waiting for, was it Ha-Seong Kim? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but they're expecting him to have some time to adjust. And you're seeing it. You mentioned it. He's struggling here. And the one thing that I will mention, everybody's keen on the 30 home runs that he hit last year. Don't forget, Korea used a juice ball last year. They had the highest run totals of any season over the last 10 years. And I play close attention to totals, you know, because I'll tell you, the season before that, unders were cashing, but not last year. So I think that's an inflated number. He's more about a 20 home run guy, and that's 20 home runs in Korea. So how does that translate here? About 12 to 15. You know, that's just the reality of it. So he's not what people think he is, but he's still solid. You know, he's still a good hitter, but time to develop. When we're talking about future bets now, when I think about this lineup and I think about their starters and I think about their bullpen, it's kind of hard to say how can we not take them to win the division, but the Dodgers are there, and that's still that. I'm not. I almost said rivalry, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's a
Not yet.
competition.
Yeah.
I'll say that. It's a competition. It might be a rivalry for San Diego, but not for us yet. But I'm excited for the games, and I still have a lot of respect for San Diego. They've got a lot of great things going for them. But when I look at the win total, 94.5 seems close right there. That seems too high for me to sit here and try to pull the trigger. When I look at to win the division, do I think they're going to? Nah. National League, if they can't win the division, they're not going to win the National League. Unless, mind you, there's still other teams in the National League. The NL East is packed. They got some great teams over there. So they don't just have to go through the Dodgers to get there. I just don't see enough there for me to pull the trigger. If anything, you're going to pull on the division at plus 200. But like I said, I wouldn't do it. But if anything, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a good point you brought up about Kim playing with the juice balls over there. 30 home runs with the juice balls. And, basically there's guys going over there like Chris Flexen and guys that failed in major leagues. Dan Straley looking really good over there. So you're right. It translates. 30 home runs over there has got to translate to like 12, what you said, home runs over here. So that's a great point. I'm with you there, though. I really don't think. I think you get a better number if you really like them to win the NL West. You can get a better number in season. So plus 200, it's not worth it. But now 3, 4, 5 in this division is kind of up for grabs. We'll just talk about the Diamondbacks next. So basically, they had a miserable year in which they basically sold during the trade deadline. Obviously, they need Mad Bum to come back and pitch well. He's getting up there in age. His velocity is decreasing. He gave up 18 earned runs last year, 7 homers in 17 innings before he went to the DL. Then the other starter is Zach Gallen, who was basically their best starter on the team last year. He's hurt right now. He looks to return probably in early May. Merrill Kelly, the number 3, he improved his ERA 2.59, and he really worked on his location of his pitches. He had the log, and so he threw a lot in the strike zone. He had the largest drop in walk rate in the National League last year. And then 4 and 5s looking like Caleb Smith, who they got from Miami, who's pretty good, and Luke Weaver, who I'm not very high on. But they're solid for 4 or 5 starters, I guess, and they both strike out more than one guy per inning. The bullpen's in question. Archie Bradley was traded to Cincinnati at the trade deadline. They added Joakim Soria. He looks like the break camp as a closer. Steven Crichon is their best bullpen arm. He throws strikes, keeps the ball in the park. He only gave up 1 homer in 26 innings last year. They have righty Kevin Ginkel, who looks to step back. He took a step back last year, but it looks like he's going to throw important innings the rest of the pen. Really unknown, yet to be finalized. They might use a closer by committee. They probably will use a closer by committee if they don't trade for anybody additional. The lineup, they have 3 guys projected for 20 home runs, 75 RBIs. Kendall Marte is the most dynamic player on this team. He figures to play both second base and center field. David Peralta is healthy again. He had a 300 batting average last year. Plus, he developed into a pretty good outfield. He won a Gold Glove in 2019, and he was a finalist in 2020. Eduardo Escobar, this is his final year of his contract. He did have a somewhat of a down season last year, but in 2019, let's not forget, he had 35 homers, 118 RBIs. As Nick Ahmed, he's the best defensive shortstop probably in the MLB the last 3 years. He saved 51 runs, more than any average shortstop since 2018. Christian Walker looks like he's going to be the starting first baseman with Jake Lamb out of town. He had a solid season basically last year on both ends of the ball. He led the team 18 doubles, 34 RBIs. Josh Van Meter looks like he's going to be playing a lot. They acquired him from Cincy. He had 8 home runs in 2019 as a rookie. He kind of struggled last year. Bench, they got Josh Rojas, Asdrubal Cabrera. They added Stephen Vogt. Cole Calhoun, when he gets healthy, will be back. So this team's all right. They continue to build their cast basically through friendly youth and buy when they're ready to fully compete. They basically traded most of their guys down the stretch last year that they knew weren't key assets on the team, even their closer. But in my opinion, this team is still a couple arms away from competing in the National League. Plus 7,500 to win the division. Over-under wins 74.5. To make the playoffs, plus 1,000. I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach on the Diamondbacks. What do you think, Nolly?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'll tell you, perspective what I hear around from people that I talk to, some people seem to be a little high on the Diamondbacks, and I tell you, I don't get it. I'll tell you that what I see when I see the Diamondbacks and I think of their organization, I think of sinking ship, because that's exactly what's going on right now. Their owner is one of the tightest, and you talk about owners. The guy is quick to resell and get rid of people, and that's what he did. They had Marte, they had Starlin Marte for not even a full season, and the guy was their best hitter, the only guy that was actually hitting, and they shipped him out. Because the uncertainty of the future. And I understand that. You talk about the Dodgers, one of the wealthiest organizations in MLB, talking about they took a hit of $100 million. So some of these smaller franchises, I can understand why they're getting rid of teams. I can understand why Tampa Bay got rid of Blake Snell. This is the time to get something for him. So I can understand that stuff. But the other thing that I hear and that I've been hearing is that the Diamondbacks are the only organization to still not pay all their employees their full salaries. So you got scouts that are out there that aren't making their full salaries, and they're complaining, and they're the only team in Major League Baseball that's this is going on with. These guys are fed up. We're doing the same job for less work, and I hear it. I've read multiple articles about it, and that can't be good for the clubhouse. Mind you, those are a little bit separate than the guys playing, but still, that tells you kind of where the organization is at. But when we're talking about the X's and O's and the guys that are playing, I look at the rotation first and foremost. Two guys that I do like is that's going to be Zach Gallen, who actually set a record last year. He made history, gave
Mhm.
up 3 or fewer runs in his first 23 starts. You know what I mean? Like that guy was phenomenal. And the fact that they weren't able to hit, oh man, I was waiting for the Guyen days. It was almost like DeGrom days back in 2018. It was almost similar to that. But the other guy that I like is Merrill Kelly. You talked about it. The guy doesn't seem to walk anyone. That command will reap benefits going down in his career. But the other three guys are big, big question marks, especially when we talk about Madison Bumgarner and Caleb Smith, both of which velocity has dropped. Madison Bumgarner getting up there in age, he talked about it. I don't want to say he's kind of somewhat making excuses when I hear him talk about the last year, talk about it's a shortened season, it's an outlier year. But what's your excuse for 2019? That's like you're dropping in velocity. And if the sooner he accepts it and the sooner he decides to reinvent himself, the sooner he'll start to produce and do something similar to what he was. He'll never be what he was. You can't dominate like that. You don't have the fastball to do it. But what I did see in his last couple of starts, he did pitch well, especially his last start of the year. They're talking about mixing it up a little bit. He didn't want to disclose too much in the interview that I heard, but they are mixing it up a little bit. So maybe we see a little progression from him, but that velocity is not coming back. And the other thing is Caleb Smith. He talked about it. He just pitched a couple of days ago and got lit up. He's down almost 3 miles an hour on his fastball. He says the velocity will come back, but it kind of reminds me of John Gray of last year. John Gray was saying the same exact thing. He's not sure what's going on. He didn't change anything. He's working out the same, but the velocity just isn't there. And if your velocity isn't there, you're going to get hit. You need that fastball. People know how your timing works. So that's a big concern. Bullpen concerns. Last year, they get rid of their stud in the bullpen. They add a couple pieces, but still, the bullpen is still, to me, a concern. They lose, like I said, they lose their best guy. And then they're hitting, Ketel Marte had an off season. I expect him to bounce back. I'm not saying 2019 because that year was crazy. He was hitting cover off the ball, but the guy can really hit. I think if they stick him to one spot and stop moving him around so much, that he'll be able to succeed a little bit more and let the kid win a damn gold glove because he's that good. But you have to play a certain amount of starts at that position to qualify, and they're not letting them do that. They're moving them everywhere. So to me, the big question mark, I think, ultimately with the Diamondbacks is if they're going to keep Marte here because, I like some of their guys, Escobar, Peralta, Walker, Calhoun, the guys that I like, but Nick Ahmed he can't hit much.
Yeah.
Carson Kelly can't hit. Asdrubal Cabrera, I like that acquisition, but still, towards the end of his career, Cole Calhoun, a big, big downfall last year, and still never really been a high average guy. But to me, this lineup, there's some guys that I like, but maybe I liked them a few years ago. Not so much right now. The starters I really don't like. Honestly, the 75 to me, 75, you're looking at close to a 500 ball club. And are they that? I don't think so. So to me, I haven't pulled the trigger, but for the sake of the show, I jumped into it and I'm looking at all the stuff, and that's the one I'm leaning towards. So if anything right here, I'm looking at under the 75 with the Diamondbacks. You got to remember they play each one of these teams in this division 16 times. So you're looking at 16 times against the Dodgers and 16 times against the Padres. Those are some tough games, and how are you going to pull them out? So to me, I'm looking to maybe leaning towards the under 75 on the Diamondbacks.
All right. I like it. Yeah, I was kind of like, I actually bet they're over last year in the 60-game season. I was highly disappointed in what happened there. So I'm definitely going to wait and see on this team. I'm not going back to that. That's for sure. And 160 games probably just makes this team worse, is right. So I'll be interested to see how they fare and if they trade anybody else, because Escobar's on a contract year. So if they're bad, they might trade him at the deadline again. Who knows with this team, but.
Yeah, you talk about three of their main guys that are on contract years. Yeah, definitely. So, I mentioned it, the coach, the owner's not afraid to just sell. So, they got some prospects coming up. They got one main prospect coming up. That's pretty much all. But other than that, I think they're rebuild mode.
Yep, I hear you. All right, well, let's talk about the Giants next. They barely missed the playoffs last year. Basically, they lost the tiebreaker, but very impressive season from them. And they changed in their center field fence at Oracle, which helped a little bit. Mike Yastrzemski basically established himself as a star. They did sign Tommy La Stella on a 3-year, $18 million deal in the offseason. He batted .289, 21 homers in 135 at-bats in 2019-2020. Now, Brandon Crawford's a shortstop. He rebounded from a miserable season in 2019. He is on the last year of his contract, and if he starts 53 games at shortstop, he'll play the most at shortstop in team history. Donovan Solano, who's looking like he'll be a starter. He won a Silver Slugger in 2020. He flirted with batting .400 for a good chunk of the year, finished 5th in the NL in MVP. Brandon Belt had a great year, .425 on base percentage, only trailed Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, and Marcelo Ozuna. The outfield past Yastrzemski will probably use a platoon. Alex Dickerson, he mashes righties. Austin Slater mashes lefties. Then Mauricio Dubon, he makes a lot of progress he made last year. He converted from middle infielder to a center fielder. And then they have Hilo Romas, who's basically a top prospect. He could probably play valuable games down the stretch. He has elite power to all fields and a plus arm. Obviously, Buster Posey is back after opting out last year. The bench, they still have Evan Longoria, Wilmer Flores, Austin Slater. Rotation, full of question marks. Kevin the Gastag Gossman is the ace who they signed. He's been named the opening day starter. Johnny Cueto, 35 years old, on the decline, number 2. Anthony DeScalfani, number 3, who left Cincy after 7 years. He posted a 7.22 ERA last year. It's pretty good. Lefty Alex Wood slotted in the 4 spot. His velocity is he's hitting 90 miles an hour on the fastball. Now 5 is up in question. Aaron Sanchez, possibly Logan Webb to round out the rotation. So there's definitely a lot of question marks in the rotation. Obviously, manager Gabe Kapler relied heavily on the bullpen last year, but that should be a tougher task in 162 games. So Tyler Rogers, he led the NL in appearances. He had a better year than what his numbers say. Jake McGee, the southpaw, looks to be the closer, but I expect Gabe to probably use a committee with Matt Weisler, who they got from the Twins, to get some save chances, plus John Breba, who should be back about midseason and slide into a primetime pen role back. He's back from Tommy John. They're definitely better than 2 years ago, but I think they've fallen behind in the NL West. They only could do so much damage with most of the production basically from waiver wire pickups, minor trades, or the guys are platoon pieces. I expect them to start developing the young guys. Over-under set at 75. I have a hard lean to the under here. Plus 5,000 to win the division. That's just light money on fire. I ain't touching that. But what do you think about the Giants, Nolly?
Yeah, the San Francisco Giants. We're just gonna skip them. We don't need to say nothing. No, I'm just kidding. No, Now, you said it right there. They were a big surprise last year, and the big reason you talked about it, they bring in these pieces where they might not have succeeded elsewhere, and they succeeded here. Especially with the brand new coaching staff, it was a surprise to me. I took the under on them on the season. It started off real well. They started off. I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, they started off 8-16, and then they rattled off 21-15 to finish 29-31. Went over by I think 4 games, and it just really is they're hitting. They're hitting the cover off the ball. You talked about it. Yastrzemski finally getting an opportunity to play, was hitting in the Boston organization for a long time, and kind of found out that he can. And something that I talk about a lot. Belief is a powerful thing. So when he finally believed that he was that guy, he showed it day in and day out. And the other guy you talked about is Solano. I kept waiting for his streak to end, and the guy's just base hit after base hit. He's got a great approach at the plate. He did some great things, and you talk about again the coaching staff. This is a brand new hitting coaches that were pushed together, and they made it happen. They're getting guys to hit that didn't hit before. So hats off to that coaching staff. They did a great job. But the big question mark, and always when you talk about baseball, is always going to be pitching, and that's the one thing that a lot of people on the outside, a lot of scouts from the outside looking into this organization have said that they've done a great job. When we talk about Kevin Gausman, people thought he was done, and he had one of the best seasons of his career. Mind you, it's just about 5 or 6 starts, still limited. And we talk about that 162 games. He gets lit up once or twice. Then we get to see who he really is, But nonetheless, he did a great job. Johnny Cueto on the decline. I'm a big fan of Cueto. I like all the little antics and whatnot, but he is on the decline. The velocity is dipping. So, and when I reference Gaussman, they're talking about Des Galfini being another possibility of where they're able to develop him and get him going again. Maybe because Des Galfini does have some really good pitches. He has shown that he could be a good pitcher. Just seems to implode in the late innings. The one I think big disappointment for the San Francisco Giants is Logan Webb, because this is one pitcher that they kept. They got rid of a lot of pieces and they kept this guy, believing that they could build around him. At the beginning of the year, he showed that maybe he could, but over the course of the season, he started getting lit up. And so I think a lot of question marks when you talk about the 5 spot. Alex Wood, yeah, possibly getting in that rotation. But, I mean, the Dodgers were using him a lot out of the bullpen as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants start looking at him that way, just to be a little bit more effective. When you're using him as after a guy that's throwing 100 plus or 100, it looks a lot different to the batters. It's a lot harder to adjust. So that's the one thing that I see. We talk about, win the division and National League. Of course, those are out of the picture. The one thing would be the win total at 75, and I look at what they did last year and what's going to transpire this year. It's kind of tough. I see them right about the 75 mark. I see them right there. I might be a little bit hesitant because they got me last year trying to take the under, and I don't want to just be biased against them and just take the under automatically. But this is a team that's actually looking decent. This is also a team that's going to lose some of their stars. They lose Buster Posey, they lose Longoria, they lose Crawford next year. So really, it's going to be I think they might let them all go and let the youngsters kind of try to develop and bring in the youngsters. The one thing, when I look at the win total last year compared to this year, you mentioned a big thing, and that's Buster Posey. And everybody wants to talk about that odd and even year crap with the Giants. It's the Buster Posey effect. Buster Posey played that one year. They won a title, broke his leg, didn't play. They didn't even make the playoffs. Then the next year he comes back and they win another title. It's Buster Posey. That's who it is. That guy's he's phenomenal. What he does with the starting rotation defensively, and he can hit. I mean, that's a rare thing in the MLB. So that's the one thing that's kind of pushing me that they might go over. But yeah, I'm not putting my money on no Giants.
Yeah, I hear you. It's under or nothing for me on the total, and obviously the division's out the door. But it should be interesting to see what transpires in 162 games with this team. So last but not least, we got the Colorado Rockies. Obviously, their offense needed improvements before they got rid of MVP candidate Nolan Arenado. So Trevor Story's the centerpiece. He's a free agent after this year. Tapia is slated to bat leadoff. He cut his strikeout rate 5% last year, batted .321 overall. Charlie Blackmon's still a force, Batted .303, led the team with 42 RBIs. Sam Hilliard, he can play all three outfield positions. Should see a lot of playing time. Ian Desmond, he opted out to play again this year after doing that in 2020. Said he wants to spend more time for his family. You know what? Good for him. CJ Cron was added to the team about 2 weeks ago. He should be very productive in Coors and is a threat for possibly 30 home runs. Ryan McCann, very good defensively, but he needs to limit his strikeouts on the offensive end. Rotation is pretty good when healthy, with the note that they're also playing in Coors Field half the game. So Herman Marquez, he's still only 26. He's a bona fide front of the rotation starter. Kyle Freeland, he rebounded last year in 2020 from a terrible 2019, but he's sidelined right now with a shoulder injury. Antonio Senzatella, he had a breakthrough season, 5-3, 3.44 ERA. But he also has a nagging hamstring injury. So they got some injuries here. John Gray, he didn't pitch after September 1st last year because of shoulder inflammation, but he's also another free agent after a year, and he has shown success at times. They got Austin Gomber, who looks to fill the last spot. He was acquired in the Arenado deal, but he was basically less than impressive for the Cardinals. He's a lefty. Then the bullpen could get better with the return of Scott Oberg, because this team had a 6.77 ERA last year, which was the highest in their 28-year franchise history. Daniel Bard, he's probably be the setup man or closer. He pitched last time he pitched before last year was in 2013. So he was basically a surprise last year, and he pitched really well. 4-2, 3.65 ERA, and a perfect 6 for 6 on save opportunities. Robert Stevenson was acquired from the Reds, so he should slot in the bullpen. Carlos Estevez and Yario Diaz, they both have plus fastballs, pitched well in 2019, and then they added from the Orioles Mikael Givens, who will probably add as a late inning option there. But I think the pen obviously can only get better, but then again, they are pitching in Coors Field, which is not pitcher friendly. The Rockies are the only team in the NL West to not win the division, and guess what? It's not happening this year. Can they play meaningful games the final month of the year? I guess, but they're going to need that rotation to dominate, the bats to be alive, and that's a lot asking for this team. Plus 7,500, another team to win the division. They have the same odds as the Giants. Over under 63.5, which is the lowest in this division. This is a wait and see for me. I mean, it's really dependent on that rotation, because the rotation is pretty solid. So the rotation could bust out wins. They possibly could go over that number, but again, the bullpen's in question. The rotation, the guys are hurt a lot. 4 of the guys are hurt right now, and the lineup just got worse. So I'm going to stay off of it. But what do you think about the Rockies, Nolly?
The only thing I think about the Rockies, and it's something that people have misconception of going the other way, you think Rockies right now over the last 3 seasons, you need to be thinking first 5 under. And that's just plain and simple. You talk about over the last 5 seasons combined, the Rockies are the most profitable under team in Major League Baseball. So you can talk about Coors Field effect and this and that, but when you're giving me a 13 run over the game and 6.5 and 7s, I'm going to be hammering that. And you mentioned it right there. The question mark is the bullpen. The question mark is their hitting. No question mark on the pitching. All those things add that up, and that equals under, baby. You know, that's the way I look at it, you know. And you talk about some of their guys. Senzatella, he pitched phenomenal at Coors Field. He was 3-0 with a 2.1 ERA and 5 starts at Coors Field. That makes him 21-9 with a 4.9 ERA at Coors. I mean, that's something that's hard to do, you know. So he seems to bring it. He seems to feel real comfortable. I like what they got out of Marquez last year. Freeland, he talked about that ball, that juice ball. He talked about how it felt kind of rubbery. Well, we're not going to have that effect. You know, they're going to try to de-juice the balls, or what they're saying. They're deflating the balls this year, going back to regular baseballs now. So in essence, they're kind of admitting that they juiced the balls, but they won't admit it. But that's their only admission that we're going to get, you know. But I didn't need it. I saw it, you know. But you talk about John Gray. That's the big question mark, because last year's velocity was down, and you saw against teams that he has seen in the past, they really got to him. The only success he had was against teams that had never seen him before. And that's my big concern. We talk about 16 games against each team in your division. All these guys know you, and you're down in velocity. That's going to be an issue. How well he worked on that is going to be a big deciding factor. One move that I do like that they made was CJ Cron. I don't know if you watched any spring training, but the guy has a completely different approach. The guy swings completely different. He stands completely straight up. wide open stance. I seen him today. The ball was outside like 6 inches and he crushed it down the line. He's got an outgoing oppo approach. So to me, I really like what I saw out of CJ Crone. That is going to be a really big piece for them, in my opinion, but still a team that is in disarray. I think I felt like I kind of slept on their on their win total last year, being the fact that they were dealing with in-house issues. Going into last year, Arenado talked about it. He felt like he was betrayed by general manager Jeff Bridich. He said he wants to win, and nothing that you're doing symbolizes winning. So he wanted out back then. If the whole pandemic doesn't happen, Arenado is in a Cardinals jersey last year. And the only reason it didn't happen last year is the Cardinals the Padres asked, or excuse me, the Rockies asked for one more piece that the Cardinals weren't willing to give. So flash forward a year later, the same exact deal was made. So to me, that was inevitable. But what happens when your star player wants to leave? What's that happen? What happens to your locker room? How are people showing up every day feeling? Arenado has always been a stud and played well, but you seen last year he suffered. And I think you see the difference in him when the Cardinal uniform now. He's playing with a little pep in his step. I see the approaches. He looks more comfortable. So my concern is, how are these other guys feeling? Story feels like the last one out. Am I going to be gone by the end of the season? I would bet that you would, buddy. So that's what I would say. Because I look at the Rockies, and let's put it in perspective. At one point, they had Nolan Arenado at third, Trevor Story at second, and DJ LeMahieu at second, Story at short. And how do you not have? That's the core. What better core can you have than those three right there? That's what you build your team around, and he lets those people go. Really, this ball club is in disarray. They're not going to be able to put up a lot of runs. I look at their win total at 63.5, just a little low for me. Am I going to bet a team to lose 100 games in MLB? That's tough. That's real tough for me to pull the trigger on. But the one thing I won't pull on that trigger, but I'll be pulling on a lot of unders during the season. A lot of first 5 unders with them Rockies.
Love it. Yeah, that's you bring up that good point. They do hang high-ass numbers, and most of the time they get bet up. And especially first 5 with their rotation being pretty good, somewhere to the target is their first 5 unders in full game. As Nolly mentioned, it's one of the most profitable bets, or they were the most profitable bets on the under. So I appreciate everybody's time hanging out. I'll be doing a next division preview probably on Monday night with another special guest. Thanks for joining me, Nolly. Any final parting words for you?
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for checking us out, and hopefully I gave you a little bit of info, and hopefully start cashing some tickets, man.
Hell yeah. So 7 days, baby. But hit that like button. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at JoeyWork, at Nolly562. And follow Rump Your Bets. Hit the subscribe button. We're out. I appreciate your time, Nolly. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Joe Rich Ramirez, Nolly. Who else? We got Dutch. My guy Dutch, Varun. Shout out. We appreciate you guys for hanging out. We're out of here. Peace.